our military bases are turning into refugee camps. I never thought I would see this in the United States of America. And we saw 3 children, younger than my kids, 7, 8, and 9, with their grandmother, mothers in Pennsylvania, all in tears crying. And I have to say on a personal level, what an impact that had for me to see that just as a human.
And we're back now with our roundtable. Joining us, ABC News contributor and Democratic strategist Donna Brazile, former House Speaker and CNN Crossfire co-host Newt Gingrich, Yahoo News national political columnist Matt Bai, and ABC News political analyst Matthew Dowd. Welcome to all of you. And let's start with immigration. Donna, you heard what Rick Perry said about this. He said it's all about border security, and what the president has done is basically too little, too late.
Well, what the president has done is, of course, double the number of troops or boots on the ground in terms of border security. They've tripled the amount of money used for the enforcement. But what is happening is a regional crisis, young people fleeing violence, abuse from, Honduras, El Salvador,
Has that not been
Guatemala.
going on for years and years?
Well,
and
it's
years
increased.
And years?
We had 6,500 kids probably about 3 years ago. Today it's close to 65, 70,000. It's growing. This is a crisis, a humanitarian crisis, and we have to resolve it. We cannot resolve it simply, and it's not just a crisis in the United States. It's also a crisis in Mexico, Panama, Costa Rica. These kids are fleeing violence, and they're looking for safety.
Speaker Gingrich, do you think the law should be changed, that 2008 law? And there are some reports that President Obama would like that law changed, too, so they can't send them back.
I doubt very much if Senator Dianne Feinstein, who authored that particular amendment to the bill that passed in 2008, meant for it to potentially next year have 140,000 people legally crossing the border under the law. The Gallup World Poll last year asked the question, is there a country you'd like to move to? 165 million people said yes, the United States. Now, we got to confront the reality. Yes, there are a lot of deep personal stories. There are a lot of very attractive people. You really think we're going to absorb 165 million people? Sudanese, violence. Iraq, violence. Syria, violence. Much of West Africa, violence. Nigeria, violence. I mean, there's got to be some rule of law that says we get to defend our own country and we get to control our border.
What about the border that they want to build up, that you heard Rick Perry say the head of the border security is just wrong? We need far more to guard the border. That really doesn't solve this immediate crisis.
No, I mean, there's two huge aspects here. One is obviously humanitarian crisis that we're in right now, with mainly women and children come over. I often think of the idea like if there were stowaways on the Titanic, you don't ask for their ticket when you're putting the women and children on the lifeboats. You put them on the lifeboats, you save them, you deal with the problem, and then when they get to port, you figure out what do we do with the situation when they bought a ticket or they came here illegally. Solve the crisis. But this is actually an environment that's created because we haven't done anything about immigration reform. Mm-hmm. We haven't secured the borders in any real way, and we haven't done a reform that deals with the people that are in this country. So when you have an environment that's created, this thing happens.
Matt Bai, is that what has to happen? You have to get immigration reform before this can be solved. And solving this right now, letting them in, does that not send the message to others to come on up?
Well, you do need to solve it, and you can. There's a ton of common ground on this, as everybody knows. I mean, the solutions aren't that hard to figure. As Speaker Gingrich knows better than I do, the compromise happens politically when the cost of inaction with the broad electorate outweighs the risk of doing something that might really anger the most motivated people in your base. This Congress has a 9% approval rating. Last I checked, it basically means their spouses don't think, their mothers don't think they're doing a good job, right?
This is a good.
So something's structurally wrong. I don't think we're going to get it.
Speaking of polls and speaking of approval rates, there was a poll out this week that generated a whole lot of attention. When asked who was the worst president since World War II, 33% said Obama, 28% said Bush, and Nixon came in with 13%. Donna, you want to start on that one?
Well, look, this president is in the moment. In the moment, 6 years, normally that's when the itch starts, the itch to find a new president. And I also believe that when you look at the poll and how it was conducted, not that I like to talk about the internal process of taking a poll, there's no question that the Democrats concentrated all of their efforts on one or two, and the Republicans said, yes, we dislike Obama. You know what? If I was the president, I would ignore that poll and every other poll between now and the day he leaves office and focus on delivering what he promised to the American people.
Matt, you wrote this week that it's Obama's presidency, but he's still governing in Bush's world.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, a lot of people don't like to hear it. I mean, it doesn't mean, I think he could have done a better job of working his way out of a lot of this, and there are a whole host of reasons we're in this situation. But if you look at how his term has been defined, aside from health care, virtually all of it defined by issues and conundrums that he inherited. I don't think what I'm not saying is that's because Bush made such a mess and Obama can't work his way out of it. What I'm saying is I think we have deep, transformative, transitional problems in the society that are not going to be
very
solved
quickly, Matt Dowd.
by one set of policies.
It does say how dramatically the view of the public has changed on the president when he was elected and he took the office when he was going to be the one. He got the Nobel Peace Prize, and now he's viewed as one of the worst presidents. I think it's all temporary. The only thing consistent about that poll is that Jimmy Carter and Richard Nixon are always on it.
Speaker Gingrich, very quickly to you.
I want to agree with Matt Bai. We are in deep structural problems, whether it's the Veterans Administration, the Middle East, the border, and neither party has figured out a way to start offering really deep solutions. And shallow solutions just don't work. They break down in front of you, and the country sees the breakdown.
All problems it'll take a long time to solve. The Roundtable is just getting started. We're back in less than a minute with that big Supreme Court case that could affect millions of women. That debate is next.